That was some crazy Okay, welcome to All About Arsenal. That was some crazy ass intro. For some reason, it got stuck. But hey, I guess it's part of the post Man United blues.
But the irony was the slide says what went wrong. Well, the intro.
How are you doing, my
As you'll
friend?
start as always.
Man. So, you know, last weekend wasn't nice. We actually had some time to think about it, let the dust settle and let's just talk about it again before we look forward, to Kairat Almaty. So welcome to the channel again, Dom. Always good to have you here. How's your day been, bro?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. Had a good chat with you earlier, actually. So nice to be talking in person. But yeah, no, good day. Obviously, still disappointed from Sunday, but the game's gone now, and there's nothing we can do about it. It's about now what the players can do to put it right. And I'm sure we'll talk about it later. But by all accounts, they've had a really good team meeting, which kind of gets laughed at by rival fans, just like we did with Liverpool earlier this season. But I think probably what was needed, and we'll see how they react. 'Cause, proof will be in the pudding. But
Yeah.
otherwise, all good. How about you?
Yeah, I'm fine. I think it was. I was going to talk more on that interview that Arteta said, looking at it word for word. But going into the week on Monday, it wasn't fun. Trust me. Like in my workplace, I have so many Man United fans that are friends of mine. I was a bit bullish towards them on Friday, bearing in mind that I thought that we were beating them, I think, for the last 8 years at the Emirates. So it kind of seemed obvious that this was going to be another routine victory, and we scored first. But when it all panned out and the game ended 3-2, I started getting calls on my phone, and I just think that okay, Monday was going to be gangster. So going into the office, obviously I could not carry a hood or a max like Rory and Seb.
Bit hot, right?
so, so I couldn't carry a ski max into the workplace and whatnot, and I really got roasted. But it was well deserved.
What did
You
you try and
know,
do? Sneak in through the back door and hope no one noticed you?
Yes, so there's a usual entrance I go to when I want to get to my office. And typically, if I want to use that entrance, there are like three United fans I'm going to pass before getting there. Well, I kind of chose like a different entrance, nothing that they were actually waiting for me in front of my office. So I'm like, nah, man, it's all good.
Oh,
Well,
that'll teach you for getting cocky.
yeah. So right now, I'm going to be humble, eh? Yeah.
What were
So
they doing? Did they do the MLS celebrations well in Harlem last year?
no. So funny enough, I think one guy tried to do the whole Queen thing, and I'm like, come on, they're supposed to do that, like, and all that. So I saw on Twitter, they're like, what are the celebration called? One Arsenal fan said it was the 12 points above Man United celebration, but it's all good. So emotions are still running high from then. Obviously, before we spiral down and take away all the agenda-driven noise, we just need to slow down. What does this loss really mean to us? And more importantly, how do we respond?
Yeah.
So the first thing we need to do is just to check it up again. What went wrong? In your opinion, Dom, what went wrong?
It was odd, wasn't it? Because the first half hour, we looked really, really good, right? High intensity is what I've been calling for to start games like that more often. Looked really good and got the goal. I think, obviously, I think the turning point was actually the second goal. Obviously, the momentum shifted with the first goal. Zubimendi making a horror error. I genuinely, to this day, don't know what he was trying to do. Why he doesn't let that ball go across him and play it up the line. It wasn't a good pass from Gabriel. But
Saliba.
was it Saliba, was it? Sorry.
Yes, Saliba, yeah.
Yeah, but either way, it wasn't a good pass, right? But, he's got to be he's got to be doing better there. But it's an individual error, and it's hard to mitigate against an individual error as a coach or manager. And to be fair to Zubimendi, he doesn't do it too often, and he does take risks on the ball. And I think the risk reward is a bit like David Raya being high in games. It 9 times out of 10 it benefits you rather than hinders you. But in this occasion, obviously, it hindered us. And Burma's not missing from there. Let's
Yeah.
no chance.
Yeah.
But obviously, that changed the momentum of the game. Manchester United much better from there. But I think what really changed the momentum of the game was the second goal. I think that was a killer to Arsenal. But Arsenal, they didn't react well to this one. Whether it was a bit of mental fatigue from being away, whether it was a little bit of pressure, whether it was just that Manchester United actually upped it, and I think probably an element of all three. Really, United really got a hold of the game. They didn't dominate the game in any way. I mean, you look at the game objectively, and this is just sour grapes. They had two wonder goals and a mistake for their three goals that they scored, but they defended well, and ultimately Arsenal didn't offer enough to beat Manchester United at all. We didn't. We dropped that intensity. We looked like we were playing within ourselves because we didn't know what to do, and we didn't look composed. And we were talking about this yesterday, right? I don't think the four substitutions helped that either because it sort of
Yeah.
increased the panic. It was like, oh God, everything must be terrible because we've made four subs. I mean, in some ways you could argue it's three because in Hakapia, I think, was a plan change.
Yeah.
But it did change things, and I don't think it changed things for the better for Arsenal. And sometimes that can happen with subs. Sometimes a manager can look like a genius because it changed it. But we just didn't attack with the right intensity at all. We didn't keep it going for long enough. And once we went behind, it looked like we lacked a bit of belief. And I think that obviously has to change. But that for me was the big thing. It was momentum. United believed in themselves. They had this belief. They also had nothing to play for, right? There was no pressure on them whatsoever. So you can kind of
True.
go and play like that. Michael Carrick is a free hit for him.
Yeah.
But the other way around, it was pressure for us. I don't think it was total pressure, but we just looked nervy and we kind of fed off the nervousness of the crowd, and the crowd fed off the nervousness of the players. It's not something I worry about long term. But if it continues to creep in, you start to. But I think that for me was still the biggest worry. It wasn't our lack of creativity. It was our. I think we would have created more chances, continued to create chances if we had not had that sort of mental block. But there was a mental block there, and it's the first time I've seen it. We did the same against Bournemouth, but reacted in completely the opposite way. This time it was a very poor reaction to it. And I think that's where the game was won and lost ultimately.
Yeah, so my question to you would be, what's your take on our risk factors? Because if you notice, we tend to take more risks at the back when you see the likes of Gabriel trying to give a pass to his goalkeeper and you see Evan Nielsen where he scored the goal, or Zubimendi trying to give a pass to his goalie and obviously he got intercepted by Mbuemo, or even Raya when he makes some kind of passes that you have your heart in your mouth if the opposition attacker actually gets the ball, but when he passes, everybody like hey. But when we go further up the pitch, you will see a Martin Odegaard in a position to actually give like a nice pass to someone in the final third when you probably recycle it back. So is it because we are so much focused on control, wanting to like, basically pass the ball to death before we now do what we need to do? Don't you think, what do you think we need to do better with our risk taking, especially further up the pitch?
So I don't think it's the fact we take more risks at the back. I think you just notice it more when it goes wrong. Um, you know, I think if as a defender you make a mistake or goalkeeper you make a mistake, people tend to remember it more because you've just probably cost your team a goal. When you're going
Yeah.
forward and you pass the ball into the box and the defender intercepts it, no one tends to remember. The only time really you remember a striker is if they miss an absolute sitter, like Martinelli a
Yeah.
couple of weeks ago, right? Whereas a defender, everyone will remember Gabriel's mistake against Bournemouth for the rest of the season. Ultimately, hopefully, it won't matter, but probably no one remembers the Gabriel miss, right? And probably a Zubamendi mistake because we lost the game is one people will remember, but people, remember that more.
Yeah.
But I do think you're right in terms of we are a little bit more cautious and we pass the ball to death around. And I think there is an element of control there. And I think if you're to win a game and compete for multiple games over the season, you cannot play 100-mile-an-hour football. And I'll give
True.
two recent examples of that where I said in September neither side were winning the league, and I wasn't on social media then, so I can't prove it. But you'll have to take my word for it. But the first
Mm-hmm.
season we went for the title, I just said depth isn't there, and we can't sustain this basketball football for the whole season because the
Yeah.
depth isn't there. And then Liverpool in Klopp's last season, very similar. So I think you have to have an element of control in your game to sustain multiple title charges without running out of steam. But I also think that actually some of the lack of risk taking, lack of creating opportunity comes down to the opposition as well. And that's not to blame the opposition. Arsenal had to find a way through. I'm not absolving Arsenal of blame here at all. But
Yeah.
and you can see it really clearly in the difference between when Arsenal play in Europe and when they play in the league.
Yes.
The defence in the league for Arsenal is about 8 meters further back than when they've been playing in the Champions League. Doesn't sound
True.
like a lot, but that is a long way back. And Arsenal play against the deepest sides in the league. Manchester City did it. Liverpool did it against us. So
Yeah.
that denies space. So to define space, you have to move the ball around to try and create the space, which does mean you get the sideways, and it does appear we lack risk. What I would say, however, is that we sometimes move the ball too slowly. If you
Yeah.
look at the first 30 minutes compared to
And
the
allow the position to get back in shape, right?
exactly. So, against Inter, we actually hit in transition really, really quickly coming back. Manchester United, we didn't do it against Manchester United, albeit I actually thought Manchester United got their balance absolutely spot on with their attack to defence transition. Really, really good. They actually didn't commit as many men forward as they did against City. I think partly because they knew we were less vulnerable than City, so therefore they were less likely to score, so therefore they were kind of protecting themselves. But you know, I think we are too slow at times, and you could see that in this game. I spoke about the first half an hour compared to the next 60 minutes. Well, 70 by
True.
the time you add on injury time. How fast did the ball move in the first 30 minutes compared to the next 60, 70? Very, very big difference. And I just think, that for me is where you can unlock the defence. But it does mean it appears we take less risk than we maybe do. Against Inter Milan, they came out against us and we played risk. We played those balls. We played that Martinelli ball very quickly into Gyökeres for his goal, for instance. But
Yeah, yeah.
Eza
That
gave the
outside
ball.
pass.
Exactly. Eza gave the ball away 3, 4, 5 times against Inter trying to make something happen. And as a
Yes.
result, we go, well, he didn't have a great game. I mean, he wasn't bad by any stretch, but but actually, he was trying to make stuff happen. And when you're trying to make stuff happen, you are going to give the ball away. So I don't think we're necessarily risk averse per se. I think it is match situation because of the differences in those teams. I think United come out 8 meters further up the pitch. I think you see Arsenal approach it slightly differently.
Yeah, but then again, since we're already aware that teams always play low blocks against us in the Premier League, don't you think we need to diversify how we play? Because one thing I always remember, the game against West Ham that we won 2-0, I still tried to take out Zubimendi and play with Odegaard and Eze as the double dual eights with Declan Rice behind them. But unfortunately, Odegaard suffered that injury. I think it was his knee when he clashed with Somerville,
Hmm.
because when he came into the pitch. But looking at how some games would have been, don't you think he should have brought the likes of Eze earlier and take out maybe Mendy instead of Odegaard? Because for some reason he tends not to finish games anymore. Is it a case of him being injured or just being no longer influential in games for us anymore?
So I think the Odegaard not playing brilliantly has been overdone. I don't think he's been great in the last 3 Premier League games, but he's not been as bad as people say he is. I've
Okay.
heard people say that he gets that. Obviously, it won't count as an assist because it was no goal, but he gets that assist because he miscues a shot. I don't think so. I think that's an outside of the foot pass into the
Yeah.
danger area. So I think he means to do that, and I think he had some really good, nice touch in that first game. But he's certainly not where we know he can play in the last 3 games. I think undeniably that's true. But I think my big thing here with the attack at the moment is we're not quite getting the combinations right for the teams we're playing. I think Martinelli, why is there such a big difference in Cup and League? Because he thrives on space. There isn't space. So I know he didn't start this game, but I'm using it as an example, right? He's not the type of player to bring on in this game. I
Yeah.
also think that someone like Eza should be used more in these games because he's a moments man. He can unlock something from nothing, but he will frustrate you. I
Yeah.
think I don't mind so much the Rice Zubimendi. I think they're two good players. I don't even mind the change for Odegaard off. I don't necessarily want to see Moreno on, albeit I think he's playing really well at the moment, Mikel Moreno. He gets a lot of abuse, which I think is unfair, but I think
Yeah.
that becomes a little bit too static. I'd almost, unless you're going to play him actually as a second striker, at which point that's fine. What I'd like to see a little bit more of in terms of the substitutions or even in terms of starting would be actually, we're getting Timber very far forward. We're getting Saliba very far forward. And
Mm-hmm.
that's causing one of our midfielders to drop. And we're trying to get some creativity that way. And in some ways, it's working. You saw Timber up for the goal, for instance. Obviously, it's an
Yeah.
own goal, but if
Further higher on
defender,
the pitch.
yeah, if Timber doesn't, if that doesn't go in off Martinez, Timber puts that ball in the net, right? But what I think that's doing is it's making us less conservative or more conservative in midfield because they're dropping to cover the space. Get Saliba not to come so far forward, and you can have that defensive control, which I think is really important for us. It sets a foundation. It also means teams worry about it. But actually, what you could do is go, do you know what? We're an hour in. We're struggling for a goal. Rice or Zubimendi, off you come. Let's go Ezra and Odegaard and try and do it that way and go, Saliba, I don't want you coming up anymore. You're now going to stay in F3. You do not attack. You defend every single time, which is pretty short. And I think you try and do it that way because then you've still got the numbers, but you've got that more creative presence in Ezra. Something like that, I think, even tomorrow going and I think there's three real options for how we can set up tomorrow and we can
Mm-hmm.
discuss it later. But even, do you know what? Try and go two up front. And I
Yeah,
think something like that, just to try and mix it up a little bit, maybe. But I do think that we will find a solution. I do think we will find a way through. I genuinely believe this is just a normal dip in form over the course of a season. I don't think it's anything more than that. But it's something has to change. But I think once something changes, you can almost go back to doing this, and it will probably be more effective because
yes.
teams won't quite know which one's going to do. And if it's not, you've got plan B, C, D, etc., etc. And Arteta's a good enough manager to do that.
Yeah, because I was just thinking of that moment when Saliba was so far up the pitch that he got the ball at the edge of the box and then did a cut back.
Yeah.
I was like, what's he doing there actually? If that chance went to like maybe a Saka or a Jesus or something, it would have been a different outcome. This brings me to the next slide, and this one now we're going to talk about the individual performances. So I'm basically going to dissect the entire lineup and just and just
Should we save some bother? I thought Mikel Merino was all right.
and obviously we'll start in goal, David Raya. I remember just a couple of months back when we had the whole clean sheet record, 8 games on the bounce, yada yada yada. And there was just this hype about how we're so good, trying to even catch up with Chelsea's 15-goal record. Has that got into his head? Because let's look at the goals considered. Okay, Mbeumo certainly is not at fault. He has a thing he could do there one-on-one situation. The double goal, it was quite good. I think for the replay showed that he actually stretched very well, but he couldn't reach it. Well, I feel he should have done better with the Cunha goal. Are you aligned with that, or do you have a different opinion?
I actually didn't think there was a lot he could do about all three. I thought, and it could just be the angle of the replay. It looked like his line of sight was blocked a little bit by the defender in front of Cunha. I think when you look at the Cunha goal and arguably the Dorgu goal, but mostly the Cunha goal, we didn't get tight enough. We didn't get close enough.
Yes,
I actually
being
thought there was
close
a clever
down.
little run by Sheshko to take away a defender, actually, in fairness. But I don't think we got tight enough. And I think David Raya was unsighted, and I think that did affect him. Being able to get to that goal. So, maybe that's because of the angles I've seen it at, and maybe there's other angles that Jesse he should have done better. But I didn't feel that there was a lot he could do about all three goals. I mean, I want to be very clear here on the second goal. The goal shouldn't have counted, actually. And I
Was it
do
a
think, while it was a
handball?
momentum... Yes. So I think his arm is in a natural position for that goal. But because he then scored directly as an action of it, the rules are clear that it's disallowed whether it's intentional or not. When you're
Yeah,
on
yeah.
but
That's I was stunned by that. The rule book says that once your hand touches the ball in the actual to the goal, you see a handball.
And I thought VAR should be picking up on that. I mean, not necessarily the referee might not see it in that moment, but because it wasn't sort of a big handball. But I do think that we should be careful not to sort of use that as an excuse for why we didn't win the game. I also, by the way, don't think that was a penalty against Harry Maguire. If it's given, I
Oh
think
yes, no.
I don't
Yeah,
think you overturn it if it's given. But likewise, I don't think it was a penalty. But I don't think that's why we lost, just to be clear. But I do think that Raya was fine. It was a 6 out of 10 from David Raya, probably a 5 because he concedes 3. But I'm not sure there's much he can do about the goals, to be honest with you.
yeah. Well, or maybe I'm also thinking. Sorry about brother. Sorry, brother. Sorry. Maybe I was
Sorry
also
about that.
thinking about the Krupi Junior goal when we played Bournemouth. Can you remember that goal? It was like from distance as well, and Raya kind of seemed unsighted. So for some reason, if you can't get close by, if you just blast one from couple of acres away, maybe he might actually have a shot. So let's look at the defense. Nkapie, his return from injury, I think he was okay. You know, could there be any? Could he have done any more in your eyes?
Uh, no, I think you're right. Hincapié didn't didn't have his best game, didn't have his worst game. I think that's it's what you call a return from injury type of game, right? Looked a little bit tired, looked a little bit rusty, but I didn't think it was bad by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, but
But nor was he good.
yeah, but did he feel rushed? Do you think we should have gone for Timber on the left and White on the right?
No, no, definitely not. And I think there's two reasons for that. One, well, I thought Timber did well in the Inter game at left back, roughly speaking. I think Timber is phenomenal on the right. I also think that Ben White does still need managing with the injury history, and Timber has played a lot of games. So, no, I don't think so. I was surprised to see Hincapié start. I would rather almost have seen it the other way around, coming off the bench. But he's been back in training a while, reportedly. Hand of Arsenal sort of suggesting he's been back for a while
Yeah.
and building up his fitness, which is why, while I don't necessarily expect Havertz to start tomorrow, it wouldn't shock me in a sort of similar way to Hincapié. But I would have gone Miles Lewis-Skelly, who I thought played very well at Inter.
Hmm.
Grew into the
Yeah,
game.
but I think
Um,
the threat of Ahmad, in the last couple of games he played against very good wingers like Bayern Munich, he was really cooked. Against Liverpool, Frimpong made life a living hell for him. So I think that probably would have come to Arteta's mind.
Yeah, I think so, but I also think he's sort of growing into confidence a little bit more. And last season he coped well, but I just think a fully fit Miles Lewis Skelly maybe offers a little bit more than a half, not half fit, but a match rusty in Capier. So I was surprised to see him start, but I didn't think he had a bad game by any stretch of the imagination in Capier.
Okay, so let's talk about Timber. Yes, he did well to challenge Martinez for that own goal. When the rest of the game, I don't think he was influential. I think he struggled a bit. Do you feel so?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, no surprise to hear that he's out of tomorrow's game and won't be playing tomorrow's game, assuming you can believe what Mikel Arteta says in the press conference. I think he needs a
Mm-hmm.
rest, and that's why I wouldn't have seen him at left back. I didn't like the move for him going to left back. I'd rather have seen attempt to go free at the back or play, Miles Lewis Skelly there and keep Ewan Timber at right back. I think something like that should have happened. I don't really like Timber at left back. I think he's very effective at right back. We saw it for the goal. We know how good he is. He's, for me, the best right back in the league. He's one of, if not the best right back in Europe. He can do a decent job at left back, but I don't like to see it. I think we had Miles Lewis-Skelly there, or we could have made a tactical change. But I think Timber looked tired. I really do.
Yeah. Okay, the centre back pairing, was obviously Saliba. I think it was, I know, even in as much as everyone is going to blame Zubi for that goal, I think Saliba played a very big role in it.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, and I think his performance, this new knack for going forward, I think he needs to kind of calm down a bit because it's just like, tasting some kind of drug for the first time. I just want to go all about it because in the last couple of games, I think I've been doing it consistently. Do you think it's something that he needs to curb on?
I think it's a tactical choice, right? And look, if you had, say, Norgard and Marino, I know Marino can't play tomorrow. Let's say Saliba starts tomorrow, just for the sake of this sort of example, and you've got Moreno and Norgard. They're not natural ball progressors, so therefore
Yeah.
Saliba stepping up in midfield, I can, out of defence, I get 100%. I think there's some logic to that. So that's kind of how we sort of saw it, really, when we sort of lost a little bit of Zubimendi Rice in rotation. And I like that. But again, as horses for courses, I don't want to see it all the time. Now we got Zubi and Rice back in there. I don't think Saliba needs to do it. And I think it does leave us slightly more vulnerable defensively. And we don't get enough gain from it offensively. So I do want to see that sort of stop. I don't mind seeing it every now and again, either in games or, once or twice a game or actually for a game, this is what we're going to do. But I don't want to see it consistently. And you're right. I mean, I said it was Gabriel, but you're right. I think it was Saliba. It's a poor pass. Look, it can happen. And Zubimendi still has to do better than that. He plays him into trouble, but Zubi needs to do better. He gets his body shape wrong. He gets his touch wrong. He gets everything wrong about it. And I think Zubi has to take 90% of the responsibility for that one, to be honest with you. But Saliba's pass wasn't ideal for it, to be
Yeah.
honest. I thought the centre backs were okay. But I think the gap between them was too big, and it was partly for that reason you've just said. and I think they need to get closer together again.
Yeah, yeah. And thanks to everyone that's currently on the chat. Please don't forget to put your comments. We'll look through it and talk about them as well. So as for Gabriel, do you think you have done any better from Buemo's goal?
Like I say, I think he could have got closer quicker. So from Burma's goal, no, sorry, for the last goal,
Okay, for the
uh,
Korea goal, yeah, 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 hundred
Cunha,
percent,
yeah,
100%,
yeah,
hundred
yeah.
percent.
I think he could get there quicker. Equally, and I think this is important to mention here. There is the fact that he also probably is expecting Cunha to come on a little bit, and I think that's what he was waiting for, because he's
Yeah,
probably seen that Sheshko run that's taken Saliba away out the corner of his eye, and it looks like Sesko is going to sort of come back in, and I think that's what he's waiting on, and therefore I think he's sort of waiting and expecting Cunha to take the touch. Cunha doesn't. I think that's probably what he's done. However, I think it. I mean, obviously hindsight's a wonderful thing, but I think it was fairly obvious that Cunha was going to shoot there, and I think you just put the pressure on and make Cunha do something special. Um, but yeah, again, I think I'm being hypercritical as well. Saliba and Gabriel were, for them below standard, but they were perfectly fine. They weren't anything special. You're not sort of giving them fours and fives. They were, sixes. But normally we
yeah.
sort of see them at seven and eights. We see them so dominant, and we didn't see that.
Fair enough. Now, Zubi, there was a cross from Declan Rice that he went above Casemiro, but he didn't connect to the ball well with his head. And that's on the attacking side. But on the defensive side, apart from the error that basically led to the goal, I think he should have done better with Dogu. Because if you look at that attacking play, it was basically him and Rice. And for some reason, Fernandez and Dogu were just passing around them, and they should have closed them down better. And the same thing that happened with Peter Lucic, Sucic, sorry, when we played against Inter Milan. For some reason, he doesn't close down as you'd expect. Obviously, he's not like a Caicedo that's like a ruffian and whatnot, but you expect him to anticipate those kind of balls and at least put his body on the line. But we've seen many scenarios this season where he just kind of adjusts his body some type of way and the shot still goes out. And it's not left for the brilliance of Raya to try to stop it or the ball going to the goal. So do you think that's a part of his game he needs to improve?
Yes, I think that's fair. Look, I think Zubimendi's done very well this season. I think he's played very well. But there is just that it's still a little bit of adaptation, isn't it? Which is that in the Premier League, it's that little bit quicker, and you've got to get there a little bit faster. I think that's still slightly missing from his game. I think he looked tired. I don't want to see him at all tomorrow night. I think a game off for him. He's one of three players I do not want to see under any circumstances tomorrow night. He may necessitate him having to come on as a sub, but I certainly don't want to see him starting tomorrow night. I do wonder if there was a little bit of mental and physical fatigue with him.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I think Arteta has rotated quite well this season. There is an argument. I was having this conversation earlier with Footy Corner that maybe we over rotate at times, ironically, and does that affect the flow of the game? I push back on that a little bit. I think we probably got it on balance about right, but he is one that just looks in need of a rest, and you could sort of see it look a little bit leggy yesterday, and it may have affected his passing. But he for me had arguably his poorest game in an Arsenal shirt, maybe his second poorest. There was one a few weeks ago. I thought he was equally, if not slightly poor. I can't remember which game it was now, but
Yeah.
Zubimendi was he was a four for me. He really did struggle,
Yeah.
in my view.
I agree. And let's talk about the captain. Yet another weak performance, in my opinion. Yes, he gave the assist for the own goal and all that, but I think it's fair for Arsenal fans to expect more of him. Maybe if he was not the captain, this pressure won't have been more. Because if you remember when he first joined us on loan from Real Madrid, and even the season where we made it permanent, it was all right. And of course, when we made him the captain in that 2023, where he now scored 15 goals, he raised the bar really high. Yes, he has had his injury problems and whatnot, but I think injuries are part and parcel of the game. But for some reason, yeah, I don't need to overflow this issue, but his performances are not inspiring confidence right now. And I don't know whether you feel the same way.
Yeah, look, I think the hatred and the blame to Martin Odegaard is over the top, and it's one of the things I really get irritated by, to be honest with you. And that's not just aimed at Martin Odegaard. We saw it against Kai Havertz. We've seen it against Moreno. We've seen it against Gyökeres.
Yeah, even Madueke before he signed.
Yeah, that was just disgusting.
Yeah.
But I thought Martin Odegaard, like I said about the whole team, he really, first half hour, I thought he looked really lively. He then faded away, and he's certainly struggled in recent games. And I think you made a really good point yesterday when we were talking that actually there is and I put a video out actually, which I've ironically recorded before you said your comments, which is what made me smile yesterday. But there is an argument for him being benched for a little while, just for his own sort of sake, just take a little bit of pressure off him, a little bit. But I also think again it comes back to that game state I was talking about earlier, right? That actually he thrives on little pockets of space to pass the ball into, and they're not there. And
Yeah.
I actually again I play him tomorrow because I think that space is going to be there, and suddenly he remembers how
Yeah.
to do things, feels a little bit more confident
Yeah,
further
because
forward.
no, I think was it Olympiacos when he had like an amazing game, gets many good passes to the even
Yeah,
had an assist to Saka and all that. So I
yeah,
think he
there was
needs to
space, right?
adapt.
He does need to adapt, exactly. But what I'm saying here is that he plays, say, tomorrow night, and I think he finds some of that flow back, that natural flow. Because I make the same point about Saka. Saka against Inter Milan. Do you remember he had that shot? And there was that great tackle from, I can't remember who the Italian defender was.
Yeah,
But
actually.
he gets back, makes that tackle. Saka in full flow scores that. He doesn't
Yeah,
take the
yeah,
touch.
yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's where Odegaard is a little bit at the moment. So he does need to adapt a little bit. But he also, I thought, showed signs of doing that in that little spell, sort of Christmas, New Year time. It's slightly fallen off in the last few weeks. I'm not giving up on Odegaard just yet. No chance. But I do think we need to make decisions based on, is this an Odegaard game? Is it an Eze game? Is this, Odegaard needs to get further forward, and I think that will give him more pockets of space to operate in rather than coming so deep that teams are
Yeah.
getting set. Because he's receiving the ball 5-10 yards further forward, that might create more pockets. Those sort of things I think are things that would help him. But I mean, people said he was the poorest player on the pitch yesterday. Shouldn't
I
have been on the pitch.
disagree. I disagree.
Absolutely
No,
ridiculous.
that's
The
not
first
true.
half hour, I actually thought he was arguably our best player on the pitch.
That's true. Okay, now let's talk Rice. Obviously, set pieces, all action performance, typical Declan. But do you think he's getting tired?
No, I don't actually. I think he's been rested quite well at times this season. I also think he's a player that plays at his best when he's in his flow. I just think that the team, the team and him are having just he's not that far off his normal standards, but the team is a little bit off, and therefore he's sort of struggling a little bit with that. I think he's getting a little bit of frustration, which is understandable. He's a winner; he wants to win. But no, I thought again. It was an average performance from him yesterday. Arsenal didn't play well. He didn't play brilliantly, but no, I don't think he's tired. I think he's well rested. I don't. He's not going to play tomorrow again. He'd had 5 days off, including 2 days off training because Arteta gave the whole squad 2 days off.
Yeah,
I just think it was a game where Manchester United dealt with him very, very well. To be honest with you,
fair enough. Now let's go to the attack. Trossard, our usual trust
we had an
player.
attack. I heard we didn't.
Oh my god, that's a good one, man. So we have really relied on Trossard this season, and I think he has really come on his own. And I think he actually, Arsenal fans need to give him an apology. You know, in the summer when there were a couple of clubs that were linked with him, everyone basically wanted him out for some reason I don't understand. Because even in the previous campaign, the season before this one, he scored 17 goals for us, right? And he's already been a regular. And in all the games he has been playing, you can see the impact he makes. Just that there have always been this spell, he saw with Martinelli, when he scores a goal, plays very well, the next thing he fades away for quite a while. Martinelli comes in, tries to do something. I don't know. So do you think it's high time we try Eze on the left?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't tomorrow, but I think Ezra's best position is going to be on that left-hand side. It's closest to where he played for Palace, and I think he's the closest to Trossard. And I think against teams that are going to play low block, Ezra somewhere in the team is really important. You rightly make the point that that does leave some vulnerability on the left side defensively.
Yes.
I think that's true, but I think you can adapt for that. By Gabriel is quite good on the cover. You've got Rice's
Mhm.
legs. You could, you know, move, particularly in build up, Zubimendi slightly deeper, 5-10 yards deeper, slightly more centrally to sort of cover that space across as well. So I think there are things you can definitely do there. So I think that's Ezra's best position. Um, I think Trossard just needs a little spell out of the team now. I think he is looking fatigued. Even though he's
Yeah,
not playing every week, he is looking a little bit fatigued. And I think a little spell out for him wouldn't do him any harm, and a spell in for Ezra would do him the world of good. And I could see that happening, to be fair. I didn't think he was very influential and effective on the game at all, to be honest, on Sunday. I think he was probably, for me, bar Mendy, our poorest player.
yeah,
And Zubimendi probably comes as the poorest player because it wasn't just about the goal. I thought some of his passing was a bit sloppy, and we talked about his defensive position. So he probably is still, but it obviously looks worse because of that first goal, right?
yeah.
But yeah, I think Trossard needs, if Trossard were to not play in the next 2 or 3 games, I don't think he can play, and I think that would be good, and I think he would get his hunger back as well. He's a player that when he feels hard done by, you kind of get the best out of him. At the moment,
Yeah,
he feels a
yeah.
little bit too comfortable, and he's earned his right as a starter, to be fair to him, but that's now he's got comfortable, and he's not a player that plays well for me when he's comfortable.
Yeah, I agree. He become quite inconsistent. So the one that kind of surprised me, I was actually clamoring for Gabriel Jesus to start, especially with what he did against Inter. But when I was discussing with a friend of mine at work, what he said was that yes, everyone is always truly your career not for scoring and yada yada yada. But if he started the game, he would have occupied Martinez and Maguire a whole lot more because Jesus was non-existent in that attack. Yes, I know we love the fact that he tries to drop deep and link up with the play and whatnot, but we didn't see any of that on Sunday. So is it high time to bring your careers back to the center forward, or should we make it a game state type of thing? And there be some games for Jesus, some games for Harvard, some games for Jokeres?
Yeah, I think you want to go horses for courses, right? What is the best striker for the game? So I would have gone Jesus on Sunday, not because of Gyökeres. My thinking had nothing to do with Gyökeres. Of course it does in some way, but basically the point I'm making here is Michael Carrick had one game before this one. Yeah, and by the way, I actually genuinely asked, what phase is Michael Carrick in? I genuinely wanted to scream, but I
Oh my
resisted.
God.
Um, but he had one game, right? And we don't, against Manchester City, we weren't sure, was he going to do the same against us? Was he not? I think he played exactly how we probably thought he was going to play, which was, I'm going to sit in, but when I attack, we're going to throw men forward and we're going to attack fast and we're going to commit to the attack. And that's pretty much what they did. It's a very
Yeah.
simple sort of summary of their attack. But we didn't know whether they're going to do that or whether they were going to sit in really deep and just stay sat in. And I thought that Jesus was the right man to start at 9 in theory, because he can drop deep to connect the ball and pick up the ball if they sit in, sort of try and pull them out a little bit. But if on the counter, he's got the pace on the counter
Yeah.
to be effective because he can stay high. So I thought it was the right one while we worked out how United were going to play, and then you could make the change for someone else if it's not working. It didn't work. He didn't play well. It's almost like 2 starts, even though he had the big break in between them after Inter Milan, and then this game was too much for him, which probably it was given the sort of state of things with his injuries and what have you over the years, that he maybe can't do that anymore. But so I thought it was the right decision to start him, but it didn't work on the day.
That's true. That's true. So let's just have a quick look at the guys in the chat. We have Jay, the True Copite. Big ups, bro. And we also have FCO, a Man City fan. Good to have you too, bro. I know you are kind of waiting for us to come down so you can go back up. But quick question for you.
Just very quickly, At. Sorry, on Manchester City. By the way, both my children support City and Liverpool,
Oh
so they were
wow.
very happy to see those two in the chat. Just on Manchester City, I mean, obviously they got a deserved win on Saturday. I thought they had a better side, but Wolves I thought played very well. But the
Yeah.
reason I mentioned Manchester City very quickly, I really want to just praise that referee on Saturday.
Oh yeah.
First,
His first game. That
yeah.
pressure.
Now, I want
Yeah.
to point out that I'm not saying this because it was a penalty that City were asking for, because I've also said, and we said earlier, that we didn't think Harry Maguire's handball was a handball. It's not
Yes.
quite the same, but the arm could be argued he's not in a natural position. I thought
Yes.
this wasn't a penalty for 2 reasons. One, I thought his arm was in natural position. Both of them, as they're going to make the turn, have got their arms out. I think it was
Yeah.
Marmoush for City and Mascara for Wolves. because they're trying to slow down, balance their body as they're trying to slow down to make the turn and the adjustment. So I actually thought Mosquera's hand was in the natural position. And as Mamouche goes to make what would have been a clever little flick to take Mosquera out of the game, there's nowhere for Mosquera to move his hand out the ball. And but here's why I thought it was the right decision as well from the referee. He had the confidence to go to the monitor and turn around and say, no, I'm happy with my original decision. And I think
Yeah.
really fair play to him. And that has nothing to do with City, by the way. I'm not just going, brilliant for City. It shouldn't be a penalty. Nothing like that. As I say, it's why I bring up the Harry Maguire again. But I
Oh
thought,
yeah,
what
I
great
agree. I
refereeing.
agree. I agree because I've seen so many referees that went to look at the monitor and they just mess things up. So yeah, it was very very brave decision from him, especially against the home crowd as well. So SPO has some additional comment. He said Arsenal 9, Kairat 1, then Arsenal 2, Leeds 3. Well, then again, he's playing sports. I can't even think about that. So finally, let's talk Saka. He's supposed to be our star boy. He's about to sign the 300k per week contract, but his numbers have not been up to scratch this season. I read somewhere that he has not scored an away open play goal in 2 years, just one away open play goal in 2 years. And basically, there's a trajectory that he was going with prior to that injury against Crystal Palace in December 2024. Yeah. But right now, do you think he needs to do something different to his game? Because I don't think anything is working out for him.
No, he is somewhat struggling. Maybe it's part of the rhythm as well because he's used to playing a lot and he now hasn't played 3 games in a week at all this season. But I think that's a positive. We can't have it both ways. We've been calling for a backup for him for years and now we moan that he's not
Yeah.
playing. And I don't mean me and you. I just mean in general.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe it's that. I think maybe it's the fact that teams are that little bit deeper because it looks slower because there's no space to run full pace at them. I think there is an argument he's lost a little bit of pace, but I wonder how much of it is that. But he just seems to be lacking that confidence. He's trying too hard almost at the moment. We're seeing him either not take shots on or taking shots on he shouldn't. I just think if he gets a goal, I think it will make a massive difference for him. People are also saying he's assisted now, but he's also got several assists for own goals this season that don't count as assists. I don't
Yeah.
understand why they don't. For
For
any
some
player.
reason.
Yeah, and I mean for any player or any team,
Yeah,
by
yeah,
the
yeah.
way.
It cannot be an annoying part of the rules, I guess.
Yeah,
But
but
one quick one. I'm sorry for cutting you.
no,
What's
go.
what's your take on that Saka and Gyökeres narrative? At some point
Not for
there
me.
was this talk on the street that he didn't want to feed Gyökeres when he
Absolute,
was chanced.
absolute rubbish. I just never bought that. And it all came, didn't it? Because Gyökeres was frustrated that Saka didn't pass him the ball, and then Ben White gets across in against Chelsea and he barges Saka out the way. I don't. That's not how I saw that. I saw that as frustration for Gyökeres. The ball's not come. Absolutely fine because actually he's been criticised for not making that run. He makes it, and we ironically don't play that ball. But it's also not true that Gyökeres hasn't been targeted. He's been targeted loads.
Yeah, of
Saka
course.
in this
We have the
instance
stats to show it actually.
makes a different decision. Gyökeres rightly frustrated, no problem. Ben White gets it in, and I just think Gyökeres was trying to get to White, not really thinking about anyone else to say thank you. Because
Mm.
that meant the world to Gyökeres. He needed that goal, right? So I don't think that's true. What I do think is that because Saka is that left-footed, sometimes if that ball could come in quicker if he played it with a right foot, and Saka's got a good enough right foot to find Gyökeres. That
True.
that I think is true, but I don't think that's deliberate of Saka not feeding Gyökeres. I think it is one of many narratives around Arsenal this season that's building just to try and cause uncertainty, cause unrest, and it's working to some extent because a lot of fans are getting antsy about it. I don't think and it's transferring to the players. I don't think the narrative itself is getting to the players, but that anxiety in the fan base is probably seeping through to some extent, which sort of that team meeting I touched on earlier has hopefully helped resolve that. But I don't think there's a problem between Saka and Gyökeres. They may not be the best of friends. I don't know. We're not behind the scenes, but
Mhm.
Dwight York and Andy Cole, one of the best partnerships as a two in Premier League football when they played for Manchester
Yeah,
United.
but they're not
They hated
friends.
each other,
Yeah.
absolutely hated each other. It didn't affect them on the pitch, and I just don't buy it.
Okay. So before we leave here, let's talk about the subs. Ben White, all he did was just throw the ball and throw the ball and throw the ball. Like There's some chances where Saka tried to tee up with him, but for some reason he was not in the same wavelength. You know, it's just something that, as in, obviously, I also know that you have been having challenges with injuries as well. So it's something that we need to kind of manage as well. So, what is your take of the white performance as a sub?
I think you summed it up perfectly, mate. To be honest with you, it wasn't a game where it went well for him. To be honest with you, just seemed to sort of lack a bit of flow. But I think that also reflects on how Arsenal are playing as well. At the time, he kind of summed it up, really, didn't he? But I mean, he's been playing quite well recently, so I'm not going to get sort of overly critical. But as a sub, I mean, I don't think any of the subs by Moreno really worked.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Okay, guys, let's go to the next one. And here we're going to talk about the bigger picture. So,
Oh, well,
Dom,
I've been told repeatedly. I don't understand the bigger picture, so this will be interesting.
so, so the question is, should we worry as fans?
Look, let me start with why we should worry, and then I'm going to come on to why we shouldn't, which is closer to where I am. So,
Okay.
the narrative goes, right, that Arsenal have bottled it for years, uh, that we've got, post-traumatic stress disorder, which I find a little bit offensive to sort of those that genuinely suffer from it, that we have played badly and we're playing under pressure and we can't handle the mental challenge. All of these things are coming out. And there is an element of truth to it in terms of that has happened historically. And it did appear that we were struggling mentally on Sunday. My big concern on Sunday was our way we reacted to the first goal, and then I reacted after we equalised. Right, they weren't good, but equally, and this is why I don't think we should worry. So I understand why people might, but I don't subscribe to that. We have been playing poorly in recent weeks, which is partly why people are worrying in the league. However, it's quite clear to me that in the league this season, we are going to see more of these results all round. This floor of the Premier League has risen
Yeah,
this season. You're seeing Tottenham, who aren't shocking by any stretch, only be 8 points off the relegation zone. And frankly,
yeah,
West Ham should have more points than they do. To be blunt with you, they should. As should Forest. These sides are better than necessarily the points they've got. Obviously, they are where they are because that's all they've got. But they are better sides than that. We've seen Forest cause problems for City. They drew with us, so we're going to see more of those. And I spoke about why, if the floor's higher, they're also defending much lower, and it is easier to coach a side to defend much lower like that if you've got good players and keep teams out. So we're going to see sides drop points. I think the narrative that we've done it before and therefore we're going to do it again, you can understand that. That is a logical point of view, except it doesn't really stand up to me because by that logic, no one ever wins the league if they haven't won it before.
yeah,
Secondly, this side is much deeper, much more experienced than it was before, and isn't going up against a juggernaut like it was against Manchester City at that time, who were one of, if not the best side in the Premier League history, right? This side is
yeah,
very good. I think this side could go toe-to-toe with that Manchester City side, but I would argue that Manchester City side is better than this Arsenal side, man for man, overall, if you look at the squad. Certainly as good as, right?
yeah,
And that Arsenal squad wasn't. So it doesn't stack up to me. The side is more experienced, it has more leaders, and it has more experience of it. And I really feel that something special is on the verge of happening here, kind of like it was with Klopp. Do you remember Klopp in those first few seasons? Everyone was
yeah.
saying the same thing. He's never going to win because he kept getting to cup finals and semi-finals and not winning. And then he got over the line, and suddenly,
Champions League,
they,
Premier League,
they
FA
didn't win as
Cup.
many cups as you would expect them to do, given the quality of the side, the money they spent, the quality of the manager. But that speaks to how good City were, rather than
Yeah,
how poor Liverpool were.
yeah.
And I feel the same
There
about
was a year
Arsenal.
that they had 95 points, but they became
Yeah,
second.
yeah, exactly. I think they went to 100 points in their one season, or 99 and didn't win it. But
Yeah,
it's just ridiculous. But that's all the reasons why I don't think you should worry or need to worry. And this is a perfectly normal dip in the course of a season. It happens. It happens in most seasons. People go, well, it didn't happen with the Invincibles. Well, it did actually. We drew
yeah,
12 games. Or it didn't happen in Wenger's first one. Well, it did actually. We were booed off and miles behind Manchester United comparatively, around in December time, around Christmas. Well, it didn't happen in the 100-point season. Well, a 100-point season doesn't happen very often. The clutching at straws to find examples where it didn't happen, and even then, most of them have these periods. So I'm not concerned. I am not worried. There is the quality in this side, and I think there is the mental strength in this side, and I think that's what's different. And this is just a normal dip. So I am not worried. I understand why it is. What I do think though is if we're in this position in 2 weeks' time, not 4 points clear necessarily, but playing in the same way, dropping silly points, then you can start to worry. But equally, I said it at the start of the season. I was laughed at for these two takes, right? Liverpool, I thought were going to finish second. I'm not pretending they were going to be where they are now, but I said their squad
Mm-hmm.
wasn't balanced and they weren't winning the league because it wasn't balanced enough. And I didn't think City defensively were good enough to win the league. I stand
Yeah.
by both of those statements. Now, I may be looking stupid come May because City may go on that run, but I just don't see that run happening. And I think for all of those reasons, I am not concerned at this moment in time. In 2, 3 weeks' time, if we're in the same place and the gap's a little bit lower and we're still playing this way, then yeah, maybe. But I just don't think we will be. I really don't.
Yeah, I agree. Because if you are thinking that Arsenal will go through the entire campaign without any setback, then you are not like a football fan because this is also something that actually happens in football. Yes,
Yeah.
you try to dominate games, no doubt, but sometimes the progression doesn't just work out. Our consistency will be tested, our mental sharpness will be challenged, and of course, our maturity will be defined. But what comes to mind is the interview that Mikel Arteta did in the
Sorry,
Kairat game.
sorry,
Did you
18.
listen to it?
Sorry to interrupt. Just before you do that, because I think it's important. What's your view? Are you worried about this?
Okay, so in all honesty, I'm just like you. I'm worried and I'm not worried. I'm worried in the sense that we've gone through three campaigns on the trot, in second place, and each campaign were unique. The first one, we have been in the trenches for a very long time, finished in fifth place, and all of a sudden we found ourselves as the best team in the land. We led the Premier League for 93% of the time, and in the clutch period in April, we drew West Ham, drew Liverpool, drew Southampton. Southampton was basically losing to everyone else. And of course, when we lost to Man City, it was over. The Watford Nottingham Forest game. So that one was kind of different in the sense that, okay, we have been struggling under Wenger. Emery couldn't do any well. Arteta came in to stabilize the team, and now all of a sudden we are 30 challengers. So the second season, we looked more mature. Yes, we had that terrible run against Fulham and West Ham in December. And the lads went to Dubai and just came back all guns blazing. Up until we beat Aston Villa, where Unai Emery obviously became a thorn in our flesh, and went all the way to the final day of the campaign to lose that season. So you could see the progression. The first one we were high for a while, had a very bad run and we dropped. This second time we went all the way to the final day. Then last season was just off.
Yeah.
The injuries and whatnot, but we're so far off. So you can see that in all the three times we all came second, on the surface it was second, second, second. But we all took different scenarios that led us to come to second place. And now we are first. We have been at top of at Christmas. Like maybe I think in 6 out of 8 times, I've only won it once being top at Christmas. If I recall correctly, something like that. So that's where my fear is in the sense that we have had this issue so much. Another thing I'm scared about is the fact that there's so much pressure. You can see it in the way the lads play sometimes. You can see it in the way the fans react at the Emirates sometimes. When you want something so bad that you don't want to mess things up, so you're trying to be so careful. So we're not playing as well as we would have loved to. And that's why I see where my problems are. However, where I'm not scared is that one, these guys are battle tested. They are hardened from what has happened in the past. And there's a determination to show it differently this year. Look at the teams we lost to last season. Fulham. When we played them in Craven Cottage, we won. Newcastle. When we played them at St. James Park, we won. West Ham, that's always been a thorn in our flesh. We also beat them. So this season we have shown that we have been able to go ahead of some hurdles that we've had, and the players are good enough. Another thing I'm happy about is the depth. We have had so many goddamn injuries, but we are still on top in both the Premier League and the Champions League. And this is a testament to the fact that we recruited very well in the summer. Those 8 players we bought have all contributed immensely to what we've been doing in this season. So that's where I'm not worried because we have the depth and we have the players that are battle tested to do this. Another part is the fact that we have kind of built a level of consistency. We're in January 27th and we've lost only 3 games. And in all the three games, the different circumstances. One was a supposed live free kick, which was an outstanding free kick, obviously. Second one was a Buendia late goal. The third one was a Cunha late goal. So you can see that the team has vastly improved, and we need to, take some confidence into it. And of course, that press conference from Arteta today, the words he said really inspired me. Did you watch it? Did you listen to it?
The Arteta, I've not listened to it, but I read it. So I've seen the quotes. So obviously you can do something in translation between written and oral, but I've seen the quotes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I agree. We need to just see how we're going to be in the next 4 months. These guys have worked so hard to get to this point, but we need to just get it over the line. And I feel that we should be just all they need now is our support. Yes, he has said all these things, but obviously that's when he's translated in the pitch. I feel that he needs to be braver in some of his changes. Someone like Martinelli, no, Trossard, Odegaard, they need to go to the bench for a bit. He can do it. You have the lads that can come in and actually do a good job. Because when Odegaard was injured early in the campaign, we were cooking. So that is my thought on the whole thing, man.
Yeah, and I think that I think in terms of what Mikel Arteta was saying today, I thought it was really, really positive, really good stuff to hear, really good clear the air talks. You need that sometimes, and that would have been a robust and difficult conversation. And sometimes you need that, right, just to refresh and to re-energize that hunger. And I think, there's two ways to look at Manchester United. You could look at that defeat and go, "Woe is us! Isn't it all falling apart?" Or you can look at it and go, boys, this can't happen again. What are we doing? Let's sort it out. And they seem to be taking the latter part. The proof will be in the pudding at the weekend. And I actually
Mhm.
think the next month will be crucial. In theory, we've got some winnable games there. I'm doing this from memory now, but Sunderland home, Brentford away. Then we got
We
another
got,
home.
yeah,
Then we then
Sunderland, Brentford away, Wigan
in the cup.
in the cup.
Leeds away is
Mhm.
next. So and we've got another home tie. I can't think
So
who is that.
Leeds away, Chelsea in the AFL Cup, Sunderland home, Brentford away, Wigan in the cup, Tottenham away, Chelsea home.
Yeah. So you look at that and go, there's a lot of winnable games there. I'm looking at cities because I've got cities in front of me. I'm just talking league now. Well,
Mhm.
let's do the whole thing because you've just done it. Spurs away. Well, I mean that's a banger, right?
Liverpool,
Spurs can't win at home. Then it's Manchester of Newcastle United in the cup. So big. You'd expect them to go through because they've got an advantage, but they're going to have to still put out a strong side. Liverpool
yeah.
away, Fulham home. Well, Salford's a gimme, but so should Wigan be for us, right? Then it's Newcastle again in the league, and then it's Leeds
Mhm.
away. You know,
Mm. It's a tough run, actually,
it's a
man.
tough run. I mean, ours isn't easy because there aren't easy games so much in the Premier League anymore. Brentford at home are going to be as in Brentford are at home against us. They're going to be a good side. It's difficult to go there and win. Leeds have only lost twice at home this season. So
Yeah.
you look at that and go, look, Arsenal's run though still on paper very interesting, and I think really if you come out at the end of this month and we are only 4 points clear, City will feel very very pleased. But I think there's a big opportunity here for Arsenal to put it right, ease the pressure on themselves by opening up that lead, and if they take that, the world looks very different to how it looks today.
Okay, so now, what's your take on Villa? Are they being disrespected as title challengers?
Yes and no. Look, they're in the same place as, as Man City, right? They're
Mhm.
identical records, near enough. The goal difference is lower. Um, so, in some ways, the answer is yes, they are being disrespected because we're 23 games into the season. What that's, two, nearer, not quite two-thirds, but approaching two-thirds way through the season. And they are where they are, right?
Mhm.
So, it's what, 58% of the way through the season now. So, to be written off as people are doing, you could argue is disrespectful. However, I don't think Villa win the league. Villa are still in the FA Cup. They're still in Europe. They don't have the strength of depth. And if you look at their underlying numbers in terms of the chances they create, how much they win games by, how close these games are, whether you like XG or not, their XG isn't brilliant. Look at all
Yeah.
of those factors, and you think it doesn't feel sustainable. It feels like Liverpool of 2 years ago.
Yeah.
They're not playing that fast flowing football, but you just always felt a drop off was coming because they were just about getting over the line in games, and at some point I think it catches you up. But I think they deserve enormous credit for the way they played. You can't 100% rule them out, but I would be stunned if Aston Villa are lifting that Premier League trophy at the end of the season.
Yeah, but do you think the acquisition of Tammy Abraham will add to their attacking ranks?
Yeah, if he comes back I mean, he's not been bad at all in Italy, but he's been out of the Premier League a long time. But he has played in the Premier League before. He understands it. I think it's a really good move for Tammy Abraham. I think it takes some of the pressure off Ollie Watkins. It does
Yeah.
strengthen their depth, but for me, still, it's wider than just a striker area that I think they are. It's not that they lack depth, but that you look at it in
That
comparison to
quality, yeah.
yeah, you look at it in comparison to the other two, and as you say, the data and the eye test kind of says, and history kind of says Villa fall away. But maybe they do a Leicester. That wouldn't be as big a surprise as Leicester, but maybe miracles do
Mhm.
happen. But I just don't see it.
Yeah, so how do you relate their game against Newcastle? Because St James Park is a ground where many teams have come and struggled, and they travelled all the way to Fenerbahce in Turkey, won the game, and flew straight to Newcastle, right, without coming to Birmingham, and it's wanted to get the victory there. How inspiring was that for them?
That was seriously impressive, to be fair to them. Right, really impressive because you rightly say they just travelled away to a difficult ground to go to, by the way. They travel away and they go and get that result, right?
Yeah.
It was seriously impressive. I know that Newcastle weren't quite at full strength. I know Newcastle not having such a good season this year, but they're still good at home. There's still that crowd. There's still no mugs, right? We saw
Mhm.
how hard it was there, and we went there and got the win. So it was a seriously impressive victory for them, for sure. But again, I just look at it and go, impressive as it is, I just feel they fall away. I really do. Maybe again I look silly come May, but I don't think so. I think they fall away. I just don't see them sustaining it. Well, I don't know about you, AT. Do you think they will?
Yeah, I think they'll make Champions League this year. I know
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Emery has been a serial bottler for quite a while. He even bottled it with us and bottled it last season. But right now, I think top three should be Arsenal, Man City, Aston Villa. Then maybe Man United, Chelsea, and Liverpool probably fight for fourth, fifth, and sixth or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like this bottling narrative, to be honest with you. I think bottling is when you are expecting to do something, and I think you
Mm-hmm.
expect to do something at the start of the season, not necessarily the end, right? So,
Okay.
and I know people say, well, the situation changed over the season, and yes, in some sense it does, but I think you also have to look at the sort of big picture and you go, do I think Villa, if they were to fall away towards the end of the season, even if they finish fifth, they probably achieved what I expect them to achieve. They're in some ways artificially high because of that big run they had when they won 11 straight or whatever it was. You know, so I think they'd probably be returning to the mean. And therefore, I think, I don't like bottling. I think bottling is genuinely like, I don't know, Manchester City a couple of years ago, best squad in the league, way ahead, and they somehow end up 5, 6 points behind another team. I think
Okay,
for
fair
me
enough.
that's bottling. I think it's an overused narrative. It also, by the way, means that you poo your pants rather than anything else. But if that's where it originally comes from, Cockney rhyming slam. But there you go.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. Okay, so we've had enough talk about our post-mining thoughts. Let's so much out there. So let's shift focus. Why does this game matter?
I mean, look, can I do my dad joke and then we can go on for it? The
Yeah, go
question
ahead.
really is, can we make it Kairat tomorrow? But but I told you it was bad. I did give you advance warning.
Oh my god.
So look, the game itself doesn't matter, right? Arsenal should win this game comfortably. And but it still has some importance, right? And it has importance because of the narrative around Arsenal, right? These next two games are actually quite important for Arsenal from a narrative perspective more than anything else. If Arsenal, if Arsenal don't win tomorrow, it doesn't matter. We still finish in the top two. We're gonna
Yeah.
make loads of changes. It doesn't matter from that perspective. But Suddenly, you put extra pressure going to Leeds. Look, we see we shan't win. How rubbish are we? All of that ratchets up even further. Arsenal can't handle pressure. People are talking about why they're going to bottle it. This is why I can't beat Kairat. And look, that will probably even exist unless we win 6, 7,
Yeah.
8 nil tomorrow, right? And if we make multiple changes, you're probably not winning 6, 7, 8 nil. Right? Maybe we do, but it's less likely. And we're expecting heavy rotation tomorrow, right? But here's why it does matter. It's that narrative I spoke about, but also I think there's a chance here to find a little bit of form for players. So I would make lots of changes to this side. But you spoke earlier, Eza, can he get a goal? Massive for him. He's got to start tomorrow. I would start Odegaard. Why? Because I think he needs a goal. You know, Havertz, I'd like to see get minutes tomorrow, but I'd like to see Gyökeres get minutes. But I would also like to see Madueke start, get a goal, but I'd like to see Saka come off the bench. Maybe even Trossard come off the bench. Just get them a goal and a little bit of rhythm tomorrow. And if they can get a goal or an assist or do 2 or 3 magic moment bits, you know, even if it doesn't lead to a goal or an assist, which you'd expect them to be able to do against players like Kairat, you know, and I
Mhm.
don't mean to disrespect them, but they've won point in the Champions League. They are here for the ride, right? They are
Yeah.
enjoying it. They are here to have fun, right? And
Sure.
deservedly so. This is the moment of their lives. It's like a
Mm-hmm.
League Two side making an FA Cup final. You know, it's
Pretty
huge.
much.
And I'm not trying to disrespect them, but they are not at the level of Arsenal and nowhere near it. And nor would they say they were. But it's there's where the opportunity is, right? To not change the narrative, but to stop that narrative getting worse. You don't change the narrative and until Leeds, like you go and beat Leeds, that can start to change the narrative. But ultimately, you don't change the narrative until you win anything, because it's going to be there because people are going to want to push that narrative because it sells, right? But that's why this game matters. It's also a really good opportunity to get some minutes for sort of this more of the squad players as well,
Yeah.
and that's why it
And
matters.
I agree because when you think of the fact that they actually came here after beating Celtic, which was a very, very big team in the playoffs, So yes, they've been in here for the ride. They've been losing. They lost to Inter, lost to Real Madrid, lost to Olympiacos, Club Brugge, but they managed to get a draw against Paphos, and that was like a win for them. So this is a game that we're expected to at least rotate a couple of players, which brings me to our predicted lineup. So this is what I have in mind. Kepa in goal, Luis Kelly as the left back, Nkapia and Mosquera in the middle, White on the right hand side, and Eze, Nogard, and Odegaard in midfield, with Martinelli, Gyökeres, and Madueke in attack. So looking at this, Dom, where would you make changes?
I wouldn't. That would be the lineup I think we will see tomorrow. The only possible change I would potentially see here would be if, I think given the fact we haven't seen much of him, probably seems unlikely. If this has been planned for a while for a Havertz start to get 60 minutes, you could see Havertz
Hmm.
starting. But I think that's very much fitness related. The only other possible change would be here, because I don't think Calafiori will be ready to start, would be if they don't want to push in Capier again, is it Marley Salmon or Gabriel come into that left-sided centre back position?
Fair enough,
But
fair enough.
but what I will do, because this is a side I think we will play, and I think that's one option. There are 2 alternatives, right? But before I
Hmm.
do that, the 3 players I do not want to see tomorrow: William Saliba, Yuri Timber, both pretty much confirmed as not going to be playing tomorrow by Mikel Arteta at the press conference
And
today. If you
Zubi.
believe that, obviously Moreno and Rice are out because they're suspended. I don't want to see Zubimendi either, not because of his
Yeah.
performance on Sunday, but just give him a rest. I could see him potentially having to come on if we need to. We get a problem in centre midfield, but what I'd rather see in that situation, Miles Lewis Skelly move into midfield because it is Kairat, and bring on a defender to go into left back, or or left centre back, and it over goes in Capier. I'd rather see that than Zubi play tomorrow, unless you want to give him 20 minutes because he feels like he just needs 20 minutes in his legs and just to get a little bit of confidence after that weekend. That may be the reason why you see him. I wouldn't be shocked to see Zubimendi in some form tomorrow. But here are 2 alternative lineups I think you could go. I won't go through the team, but just how you could line it up. I
Hmm.
think we're going to go forward at the back, but what you could do is look to go Norgard and say Odegaard as 6 and 8, with uh, Eza out on the left instead of Martinelli, and 2 up top in a 4-4-2. An
Okay.
alternative that would be that you go. and bring in someone at left back or left centre back, Gabriel or Simon comes in, Hincapié goes there, and then Lewis Skelly, as I just talked about, as a potential in-game to prevent Zubimendi playing, goes into midfield, and you see Eza go onto the left instead of Martinelli. But I think this is a lineup we will see tomorrow. I think you've got that spot on. But there are two alternative options you could be looking at where you could still make the rotations. But I wouldn't mind having a quick look at 4-4-2 for a little bit tomorrow. Because
Yeah,
we spoke about needing to change something in the Premier League, even if it's just short term, just to mix things up and get teams progressing a little bit. Do you see it for 20, 25 minutes? Even if you then go to your normal lineup against Leeds, Leeds suddenly going, oh, Christ, do we need to prepare for 4-4-2? Christ, what if they're doing that? Well, did they do that for us?
yeah,
Get
yeah.
things a little bit.
I agree. So just make yourself less predictable. So, but do you think Salmon will get some minutes?
Well, he was injured in the last under-21s game. He came off injured in that game. He did, however, train today. I'd like to see Marley Salmon come on and get some minutes if we are making a defensive change. I don't really want to see Gabriel get 90 minutes. I don't think there's a need to. But I think what you could see with Marley Salmon, the reason why you might not see Marley Salmon tomorrow might be that Calafiori and Hincapié need a few minutes instead.
Yeah. And I was also thinking the yellow card that Declan Rice got against Inter when he came on the
That was in no way deliberate. He didn't go looking for that yellow card at all.
Are you sure?
that was 100% sarcasm.
Because it felt like grade A dark arts to me, man. Like legit dark art. And I think I love it because imagine having Rice 1 yellow card away from the next game would have been in serious trouble. So for him to miss Kairat, that makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%. That was he went looking for that yellow card. It's why he was put on. It's why he was put on the. He was actually put on the pitch because, to be fair, the midfield was starting to get a little bit.
We're getting overrun at some point. So it was very important to we actually went and did the Lord's work.
But it was getting him booked was an added bonus, right?
Yeah, I agree. So finally, let's talk about match predictions. What's the prediction picking?
Oh God, what did I say earlier? I think I said 5-1 earlier, but I'm pretty sure my match prediction tomorrow says 4-1. I mean, I'm expecting a relatively big win, but there is a world where Arsenal go 2-0 up and go, do you know what? Let's rest the legs, boys, and just pass the ball around. Boring, keep the ball, and just see it out 2-0. Kind of like we did in the League Cup games. Do you remember in those early rounds, we kind of went 2-0 up and thought, well, we've won this game. We don't let's not waste any more energy unnecessarily.
Yeah, but would the scoreline in this Kairat game affect confidence going into Leeds?
I don't think so. I think this game is almost arguably. Look, if the players get a goal, I think it does something for individual players. As a team, no. It does more harm if you don't beat them because you should be beating them. That's where it affects the team for me. But this is about calming down the fan base and hoping that individuals get. Excuse me, I've got hiccups. A little bit of confidence from it. That's kind of what you are. But in some ways, it's a no-win game for Arsenal because everyone's going, well, you didn't win 10-0.
These fans, you can never satisfy them in the end.
No.
Yeah. Okay. So that brings us.
How about you? What do you think it will be?
I'm thinking like maybe 4-0.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4-0 should be fair enough. Yeah, but I think what key thing I would love to see is Kai Havertz. We need that guy, man. And this is the kind of game you want to give him to, build his fitness and all that. I know against Chelsea, he didn't really do much. And
he had that one nice sort of off the ball run where he took a defender away, but I agree with you.
Yeah, but clearly he's looking like he's out of sorts in those minutes. But it's all good. So thanks again, Dom, for coming.
Sorry, just really quickly on Havertz, very quickly, very final point.
No,
I
that's
think
fine.
what it will do is give you an indication of whether Kai Havertz has had that injury setback as reported or not. Only one reporter is saying.
Yeah, just one source, right? It doesn't seem legit so far.
Yeah, no one else seems to be able to verify this, which is why I'm sort of calling BS on it. But if he doesn't play tomorrow, it starts to give some credence to that because it kind of suggests.
Yeah, but another thing, Arteta spoke plainly about Timber and Saliba, whether it might be a lie or not, but there was no mention of Havertz in the press conference.
No, but he did train today. He was at training, so.
Okay. So that's fair. All right, Dom. So, Arsenal domination, what should we expect for you in the rest of the week?
I have a couple of videos already out this week on Odegaard and whether Arsenal have a mentality issue. Spoiler alert: I believe in Odegaard, and I don't think we have a mentality issue. But that do go and check them out. I've got the preview tomorrow, but there'll be shorts every day as usual. I don't know what Thursday and Friday will bring at this moment, but there will be a short out every day because I put out one every day so far this year and intend to keep doing so for as long as possible. So
Oh, awesome, awesome, awesome. So as for me, I won't do a watch along. I'd like to fair to watch the game, but I'll do a match reaction that's going to be very late. I think the game is 9 p.m. here in Lagos.
yeah.
So it's probably going to finish like around past 11-ish. But there's a video I'm planning to do. Maybe I'll want to do it with you, but I want to just get your thoughts on it. I just want to put out the title. I kind of crafted a title about it. And the title was Debunking the Myth. Are Arsenal's Invincibles really the greatest?
Oh, interesting thought. I mean,
Yeah.
let me do this.
Speak of the devil, right? Yeah.
Uh,
So what I have in mind, first
yeah,
of all, is verify why the debate matters, why the invisible were untouchable, squad depth then versus now, and look at how modern Arsenal teams have been. Then of course those Charter versus True, then get our final verdict.
that's really, really interesting because football's changed so much, right? You know, I mean, at a very high level, when Alex Ferguson was winning titles at Arsene Wenger, you needed kind of 15 players. Now you need like 23. Obviously you had more than 15 in the squad, but it's pretty much what
Mhm.
you use. Football's
Yeah.
changed that much. Really, really interesting. That really interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I'm probably going to do that. Maybe I'll probably have the stream with you if you're going to be free by the time I want to do it.
yeah, that
But
sounds good.
let's just see. All right, guys, thanks for being in the chat today. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm going to put Dom's channel on the description. You guys follow my Arsenal
Thank you very much.
domination. It will be good to see you guys again. Now, of course, Dom, to the next stream. See you in later, man, and with the real ones. And I'm going to say next week, Monday, you're going to make sure that you're going to be in the Rangers now. Arteta has to leave. You know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
that was painful. So
Okay,
painful.
did I try?
I believe he's got to go.
All right, bro. Take care
Oh,
of yourself, man. Have a great night and regards to your family.